The city hummed a low, constant lullaby outside Leo's window, a sound he'd grown accustomed to, a comfort almost as he drifted in and out of those half-sleep states that stretched on long after the morning sun had painted the skyscrapers in shades of orange and gold. It was a gentle roar, the city's waking breath, but for Leo, it was just background noise, another layer in the soft cushion of his existence. He wasn't one for abrupt awakenings, no, not Leo. His mornings unfolded slowly, like a forgotten dream unspooling itself in hazy memory. The alarm, if it even went off, usually succumbed to a swift, unconscious swipe of his hand, silencing its insistent chirping before it could truly pierce the veil of his slumber. There was no urgency, no pressing appointments calling him from his bed, just the quiet rhythm of his own unhurried world. He'd often lie there, tangled in his sheets, the scent of lavender fabric softener a faint, pleasant reminder of laundry day, and simply think. Or rather, he'd let his mind wander, a lazy butterfly flitting from one half-formed thought to another, never quite landing, never quite committing. Sometimes, a sliver of sunlight, defiant and persistent, would find its way through the gap in his slightly ajar blinds, tracing a warm, dancing pattern on the wall opposite his bed. He'd watch it, half-lidded, a silent observer of this tiny, fleeting spectacle, until the effort of focusing felt like too much, and his eyelids would droop once more, pulling him back into the soft embrace of near sleep. The world outside, with its bustling commuters and its endless to-do lists, felt impossibly distant. A vibrant, energetic tableau he was perfectly content to observe from the serene stillness of his sanctuary. His room, a comfortable chaos of half-read books, discarded clothing, and the lingering scent of last night's takeout, was his haven, a space where time seemed to slow, almost to a standstill. It wasn't untidy in an alarming way, not truly, but rather lived in. Each item, each stray sock or forgotten mug seemed to tell a silent story of a moment past, a decision unmade, a task postponed. Eventually, the rumbling in his stomach, a gentle, persuasive growl, would begin its subtle plea. Even hunger for Leo was a gradual affair, a soft suggestion rather than an urgent demand. He wouldn't leap out of bed, no, that was far too much effort. Instead, he'd stretch, a slow, deliberate unfolding of limbs, like a cat luxuriating in a sunbeam. A yawn, deep and satisfying, would escape his lips, and he'd blink slowly, as if adjusting to the very concept of being awake. The city outside continued its symphony, a distant, muffled backdrop to his own private, unhurried awakening. He might reach for his phone, lying discarded on the bedside table, its screen a dull glow in the dim room, and scroll mindlessly through the endless stream of notifications, none of them truly demanding his immediate attention. Friends' posts, news headlines, the occasional meme, they all blended into a gentle current of digital information, easily absorbed and just as easily forgotten. The thought of actual breakfast, of making something, felt like a monumental undertaking. Cereal, perhaps, too many bowls to wash, toast. The toaster was in the kitchen, a whole other room, and that required movement. Usually he'd opt for whatever was easiest, whatever required the least amount of thought or effort. A half-eaten bag of chips from the night before, perhaps, or a solitary, slightly bruised apple he'd forgotten about. Sometimes, if the urge was particularly strong and the effort seemed minimal, he might even venture into the kitchen for a glass of water, the cool liquid a welcome sensation on his still sleepy throat. The walk from his bed to the kitchen felt like a minor expedition, a journey of discovery, even though it was only a few short steps. He'd shuffle rather than walk, his bare feet padding softly on the cool linoleum, his mind still a hazy cloud of half-formed thoughts. He wasn't entirely unproductive, not in a grand, societal sense, perhaps, but Leo had his own way of contributing to the gentle hum of the world. He was a freelance graphic designer, and his work, when it came, often arrived in fits and starts, allowing him long stretches of glorious, uninterrupted idleness. Clients understood, or at least they tolerated, his somewhat unconventional schedule. His best ideas often bloomed in the quiet hours of the late afternoon, or even the small hours of the morning, when the city had finally softened its roar into a whisper. He'd often find himself working on designs with a cup of lukewarm coffee beside him, the glow of his monitor illuminating his face in the otherwise darkened room, the only sound the gentle click of his mouse and the soft tap of his keyboard. There was a certain calm in those moments, a focus that eluded him in the harsh light of midday. But even his work had a certain languid rhythm to it. He rarely rushed, preferring to let ideas percolate, to allow inspiration to meander its way to him rather than chasing it down with frantic urgency. A blank canvas on his screen could remain blank for hours, even a full day, as he waited for the right spark, the perfect shade of blue, the ideal font. He trusted the process implicitly, knowing that eventually the creative currents would shift, and the images would begin to form, slowly, deliberately, on his digital canvas. This approach, while perhaps frustrating to more high-strung individuals, suited Leo perfectly. It allowed him to maintain his preferred pace, to embrace the quiet contemplation that was so essential to his nature. He found a certain beauty in the unhurried, a profound peace in the gentle unfolding of moments, one after another, like soft petals opening in the morning sun. He'd often spend entire afternoons just being, sitting on his small balcony, overlooking the patchwork of rooftops and the distant, shimmering river, watching the clouds drift by in the vast, indifferent sky. He'd observe the pigeons strutting confidently along the ledges, their iridescent feathers catching the light, or the tiny, distant figures of people moving about their busy lives, ant-like in their purposeful haste. Sometimes he'd put on his headphones, and the city's symphony would be replaced by the gentle melodies of ambient music, a soft wave of sound washing over him, deepening the sense of calm. He didn't actively do anything, not in the traditional sense. There was no goal, no task to accomplish, just the simple act of observing, of existing, of allowing the world to simply be around him. It was a form of meditation, perhaps, a quiet communion with the present moment, unburdened by the demands of the future or the regrets of the past. Even his social interactions carried this same leisurely cadence. His friends knew not to expect immediate replies to texts or calls. They understood that Leo operated on his own unique timetable, and that eventually, when the stars aligned and the mood struck him, he would respond, usually with a thoughtful, unhurried message that might arrive hours or even a full day after the initial contact. They were used to his slightly detached charm, his quiet observations, his knack for saying something surprisingly insightful after a long stretch of comfortable silence. Dinners out with friends were often a testament to his unhurried nature. While others might be eagerly discussing plans for the next week or dissecting the latest news, Leo would often be found slowly savoring his meal, taking his time with each bite, listening more than speaking, a soft smile playing on his lips as he absorbed the energy of the conversation around him. He had a small collection of plants in his apartment, mostly succulents and a sturdy, unwavering ZZ plant that seemed to thrive on neglect. He'd water them occasionally when the thought occurred to him, or when the soil looked particularly parched. Even this act, a small tending to living things, was done with a gentle, unhurried hand. He'd pour the water slowly, watching it sink into the soil, a tiny, quiet ritual performed without fanfare. The green of the leaves was a comforting presence in his urban dwelling, a small splash of nature amidst the concrete and glass. They were silent companions, unfussy and undemanding, perfectly suited to Leo's gentle rhythm of life. They didn't nag, they didn't rush, they simply existed, breathing quietly, adding a subtle vibrancy to his calm sanctuary. The concept of hurry felt alien to Leo. It was a word that existed in other people's vocabularies, a frantic energy that pulsed through the city but rarely touched him. He understood its necessity intellectually for others, for the gears of the city to turn, for progress to be made, but he couldn't quite grasp its inherent appeal. Why rush when life could be savored? Why chase when moments could be allowed to unfold? He saw the frantic energy of the city as a kind of performance, a grand, perpetual motion machine, and he was simply a contented observer, appreciating the spectacle from his own quiet corner. There was a certain wisdom, perhaps, in his approach, a quiet rebellion against the relentless pace of modern life, a gentle insistence on living on his own terms. Even his grocery shopping was a leisurely affair. He rarely made a list, preferring to wander the aisles, guided by whims and fleeting desires. He'd pick up a perfectly ripe avocado, or a bag of interesting-looking pasta, or a new kind of tea, allowing inspiration to strike him as he ambled through the supermarket. The bright lights and the gentle hum of the refrigerators were another layer in the city's continuous soundtrack, easily absorbed into his unhurried rhythm. He wasn't bothered by the crowds or the occasional impatient shopper. He simply moved at his own pace, a quiet island in the bustling sea of consumerism, slowly filling his basket with the simple necessities and occasional indulgences that would sustain his calm existence. And then, the walk home, the bags swinging gently at his sides, the city's late afternoon light casting long, lazy shadows on the pavement, another moment to simply be. The evenings often brought a deeper sense of quiet. The city's roar softened, replaced by a more intimate symphony of distant sirens, the murmur of late-night traffic, and the occasional burst of laughter from a nearby apartment. Leo would often find himself on his couch, a book open but unread in his lap, his gaze fixed on the ever-changing tapestry of lights outside his window. The buildings across the way would glow with 1,000 tiny artificial stars, each one a testament to another life unfolding, another story being lived. He didn't feel lonely, not truly. There was a quiet companionship in the city itself, a sense of belonging to something vast and indifferent, yet also profoundly beautiful. He was a small part of its intricate design, a gentle eddy in its powerful current, perfectly content in his quiet corner. Sometimes, a flicker of an idea would stir within him, a sudden urge to create. He might pick up a sketchbook he hadn't touched in weeks and begin to draw, slowly, deliberately, letting the pencil glide across the paper, bringing to life the half-formed images that danced in his mind. Or he might open his laptop, the familiar glow a comforting presence, and begin to tinker with a new design, exploring different color palettes, experimenting with various fonts, the creative process unfolding at its own unhurried pace. These bursts of creativity were not forced, not rushed. They emerged organically, like a bloom opening slowly to the moonlight, a gentle expression of his inner world, unburdened by deadlines or external pressures. The silence of the night, broken only by the soft sounds of the city, was a perfect backdrop for these quiet acts of creation. Sleep, when it finally arrived, was a gradual descent, a gentle drifting away from the waking world. He'd often lie in bed, the sheets cool against his skin, his mind still a gentle stream of thoughts, not quite clinging, not quite letting go. The city outside would murmur its final lullabies, a soft, hypnotic rhythm that pulled him deeper and deeper into the embrace of unconsciousness. There was no struggle, no restless tossing and turning. Just a slow, peaceful surrender to the quiet oblivion of sleep, a welcome respite before the gentle unfolding of another unhurried day. He dreamt, sometimes, of vast, open spaces, of endless skis and rolling hills, a stark contrast to the concrete jungle outside his window, yet equally peaceful, equally calm. And then the slow, deliberate return to wakefulness, the gentle re-entry into the world of soft light and distant sounds, the city once again humming its low, constant lullaby. His existence was a testament to the power of slowing down, of finding beauty in the unhurried, of embracing a rhythm that was distinctly his own. In a world that constantly urged haste, Leo offered a quiet alternative, a gentle reminder that life could be savored, that moments could be experienced with a deeper, more profound awareness if only one allowed them to unfold at their own natural pace. He was a connoisseur of calm, a master of the unhurried, a gentle soul navigating the urban landscape with a quiet grace, leaving behind him a subtle trail of serenity. His story was not one of grand adventures or monumental achievements, but rather a quiet symphony of small moments, each one savored, each one allowed to breathe, a testament to the enduring power of a life lived slowly, deliberately, and with an unwavering commitment to the gentle art of simply being. And so the days would blend into weeks, and the weeks into months, each one marked by the same gentle rhythm, the same unhurried pace. The city outside his window would change with the seasons, the vibrant greens of summer giving way to the fiery oranges and reds of autumn, which in turn yielded to the crisp, stark beauty of winter, and then the hopeful blush of spring. But inside Leo's apartment, the atmosphere remained a constant, gentle hum of quietude. He wasn't oblivious to the passage of time, not entirely, but he didn't feel its relentless pressure either. Time, for Leo, was a malleable concept, stretching and contracting to accommodate his unique flow. It was a river rather than a race, and he was content to drift along its gentle currents, observing the changing landscapes without feeling the need to hurry to the destination. Sometimes a friend might call, their voice brimming with the urgency of their own busy lives, asking him to join them for an event, a concert, a spontaneous trip. Leo would listen politely, absorbing their energy, and then after a moment of thoughtful silence, he might offer a gentle decline or perhaps a tentative maybe, knowing full well that maybe for him often meant probably not. He wasn't antisocial, not truly. He enjoyed the company of his friends in small doses, when the alignment of stars and his own internal clock permitted. But he also understood the profound importance of his solitary moments, the quiet spaces where his mind could truly wander, where his creative spirit could unfurl without interruption. He protected these moments fiercely, gently deflecting the external pressures that sought to disrupt his cherished calm. He had a particular fondness for old movies, the black and white classics that unfolded with a deliberate pace, a narrative rhythm that mirrored his own. He'd often spend entire evenings curled up on his couch, a soft blanket draped over him, watching the stories unfold on his screen, the elegant dialogue, the subtle gestures, the slow-burning plots all resonating deeply with his unhurried soul. There was a certain timelessness to these films, a sense of permanence that contrasted sharply with the fleeting trends and frantic pace of the modern world. They offered a quiet escape, a journey into a bygone era where life seemed to move at a more humane speed, a gentle reminder that some stories are best told slowly, deliberately, with a quiet appreciation for every nuanced detail. Even his dreams, when he remembered them, seemed to possess this same languid quality. They were often vivid, yet unhurried, unfolding like slow-motion films in the theater of his mind. Sometimes he'd float through fantastical landscapes, unburdened by gravity, observing strange and beautiful creatures from a gentle distance. Other times, he'd revisit familiar scenes, but with an altered perspective, a dreamlike slowness that allowed him to notice details he'd overlooked in his waking life. These nocturnal adventures were another extension of his gentle existence, a continuation of his unhurried journey through the realms of consciousness. always calm, always contemplative, always in tune with the soft, internal rhythms that guided his life. The concept of ambition, as defined by the world outside his window, felt somewhat foreign to Leo. He wasn't driven by a desire for grand success or wealth or recognition. His ambitions were quieter, more internal. He sought a deep sense of peace, a profound connection to his own creative spirit, and the freedom to live life on his own terms. These were his true treasures, the wellsprings of his contentment. He understood that this path was not for everyone, that many people found fulfillment in the pursuit of external achievements. But for Leo, the greatest achievement was simply to exist in a state of unhurried grace, to navigate the complexities of life with a calm heart and a quiet mind. He sometimes wondered about the people he saw rushing past his window, their faces etched with purpose, their strides brisk and determined. What drove them? What were they chasing? He didn't judge them, not truly. He simply observed with a gentle curiosity the endless dance of human endeavor, understanding that each person walked their own path at their own unique pace. He knew his path was different, a quieter, less traveled road, but it was his path, and it brought him a profound sense of peace. He found a strange kind of comfort in the sheer volume of humanity outside, the endless variety of lives being lived, each one a testament to the boundless possibilities of existence. His apartment, though in the heart of a bustling urban landscape, felt like a sanctuary, a quiet island amidst the relentless currents of city life. The thick walls seemed to absorb the external clamor, transforming it into a distant hum, a soothing drone that only enhanced the sense of quiet within. He'd cultivated this atmosphere carefully, unconsciously almost, filling his space with soft textures, muted colors, and the gentle glow of ambient lighting. There were no harsh edges, no jarring contrasts, just a seamless flow of comfort and calm. It was a physical manifestation of his internal world, a space designed for contemplation, for quiet creativity, for the gentle art of simply being. Even the air within his apartment seemed to move at a slower pace, imbued with a palpable sense of peace. And so the days continued to unfold, one gentle moment after another, each one a testament to Leo's unwavering commitment to his unhurried rhythm. The city outside would continue its tireless dance, its engines roaring, its lights twinkling, a vibrant, energetic backdrop to his quiet existence. But within the sanctuary of his apartment, Leo would remain, a gentle anchor in the midst of the urban storm, a quiet observer of the world's endless motion, living a life that was profoundly his own, a life lived slowly, deliberately, and with an unwavering sense of peace. He was a master of the mundane, finding beauty in the smallest details, in the way the light fell on a dusty bookshelf, in the intricate pattern of a rain-streaked window pane, in the quiet sigh of the wind as it whispered through the cracks of his urban dwelling. Every single breath was an opportunity to appreciate the profound simplicity of existence, to truly inhabit the present moment without the desperate need to rush to the next. He had a small, somewhat worn armchair by the window, a perfect spot for his quiet contemplation. He'd often sit there for extended periods, a mug of herbal tea growing cool beside him, his gaze fixed on the endless panorama of the city. He'd watch the weather shift, the heavy gray clouds rolling in, pregnant with rain, or the brilliant azure of a clear summer sky, the occasional jetliner a silent, silver streak across the vast expanse. He wasn't waiting for anything specific, not truly. He was simply observing, absorbing the intricate dance of light and shadow, the subtle shifts in atmosphere, the quiet drama of the urban environment unfolding before him. It was a form of passive engagement, a way of connecting with the world without becoming entangled in its relentless demands. He found a profound sense of peace in these moments of quiet observation, a gentle communion with the external world that nourished his internal calm. Sometimes a distant siren would wail, a sharp, urgent cry that momentarily pierced the gentle hum of the city, a brief reminder of the relentless pace and occasional drama that pulsed beyond his serene sanctuary. But even these sharp intrusions would quickly fade, absorbed back into the general tapestry of urban sounds, becoming just another thread in the intricate, unending symphony that was the city's song. Leo would barely register them, his focus remaining on the gentle unfolding of his own unhurried thoughts, or the slow, deliberate movement of a cloud across the sky. His mind was a quiet pond, its surface occasionally rippled by external sounds, but quickly returning to its still, reflective state, undisturbed by the fleeting chaos of the world. He wasn't much of a planner, not in the traditional sense. His days weren't meticulously scheduled, his weeks weren't rigidly organized. Instead, his life flowed with a natural, organic rhythm, guided by intuition and a gentle sense of spontaneity. If an idea for a design project sparked his interest, he'd follow it, slowly, deliberately, allowing the creative process to unfold at its own pace. If a friend suggested a casual meetup and the thought felt right, he'd consider it, but without any sense of obligation or urgency. This unscripted approach to life allowed him to maintain a profound sense of freedom, to truly inhabit each moment without the heavy weight of future commitments or past regrets. It was a liberation from the tyranny of the clock, a gentle embrace of the present. His relationship with technology was equally unhurried. He had a smartphone, of course, and a laptop, essential tools for his work and for staying gently connected to the world. But he didn't feel the relentless pull of notifications, the insistent urge to constantly check for updates. His phone often lay forgotten for hours, its screen dark, its digital whispers unheard. He'd respond to messages when the mood struck him, when the thought occurred to him, without any sense of social obligation or digital urgency. This detached yet connected approach allowed him to harness the benefits of technology without becoming enslaved by its demands, maintaining a healthy distance from the constant barrage of information that so often overwhelmed others. He also found a particular comfort in routine, not a rigid, unyielding routine, but a soft, gentle one that provided a comforting framework for his unhurried days. The ritual of brewing his morning tea, slowly, deliberately, watching the steam curl upwards from the cup, the aroma filling his small kitchen. The gentle stretch he'd perform before finally rising from bed, an almost unconscious act of greeting the day. The quiet contemplation on his armchair by the window, a daily pilgrimage to his urban observation post. These small, repeated actions formed a soothing rhythm, a gentle counterpoint to the city's relentless energy, anchoring him in his peaceful existence. Even his choice of clothing reflected his unhurried nature. Soft, comfortable fabrics, muted colors, clothes that allowed for ease of movement and a sense of understated comfort. There was no need for sharp suits or flashy attire, no desire to make a bold statement. His style was an extension of his personality, calm, understated, effortlessly comfortable. He dressed for himself, for his own sense of well-being, rather than for the fleeting judgments of the outside world. His wardrobe was a testament to his gentle aesthetic, a collection of pieces that allowed him to move through his days with a quiet grace, unburdened by the demands of fashion or fleeting trends. He understood that some might view his life as unconventional, perhaps even a little eccentric. In a world that celebrated busyness, productivity, and constant striving, his gentle stillness might seem out of place. But Leo didn't seek external validation. His contentment came from within, from the deep wellspring of his own peace. He had found his rhythm, his unique way of being in the world, and he held on to it with a quiet determination. He wasn't trying to change the world or even influence it. He was simply living his truth, one unhurried moment at a time, a gentle testament to the quiet power of a life lived deliberately and at one's own pace. The scent of rain on hot pavement, a distinct urban aroma, was one of his quiet joys. He'd often open his window slightly after a summer shower, letting the cool, damp air drift into his apartment, carrying with it the earthy, refreshing fragrance. It was a subtle sensory experience, a quiet reminder of nature's presence even amidst the concrete jungle. He'd close his eyes and simply breathe it in, letting the coolness wash over him, a gentle cleansing of the senses. These small, fleeting moments of sensory pleasure were profound for Leo, simple gifts from the world that nourished his quiet soul and reaffirmed his connection to the natural rhythms that underpinned even the most urban of landscapes. He also had a particular way of interacting with the objects in his apartment, a gentle reverence for their quiet presence. He didn't just place a book on a shelf, he'd settle it carefully, aligning it just so. He didn't just grab a mug, he'd pick it up with a gentle hand, appreciating its warmth, its weight. Each interaction was infused with a subtle awareness, a quiet acknowledgement of the object's existence, its role in the tapestry of his unhurried life. It was a small, almost unconscious act of mindfulness, a way of inhabiting each moment fully, even the most seemingly insignificant ones, transforming them into small acts of gentle presence. When darkness finally settled over the city, blanketing the urban sprawl in a soft, inky veil, Leo would sometimes allow himself the luxury of simply staring into the quiet depths of the night sky, even if only a few stars managed to pierce the city's light pollution. He'd find a profound sense of perspective in these moments, a quiet understanding of his own small place within the vast, indifferent cosmos. The immense scale of the universe was a gentle reminder of the fleeting nature of human concerns, and it brought him a deep sense of peace, a quiet calm that transcended the worries and anxieties of the everyday. He was just one small being, existing quietly under the boundless expanse of the night, and that thought, far from being unsettling, was immensely comforting. His mornings, when he finally ventured out, often involved a slow walk to a small, independent coffee shop a few blocks away. He'd know the barista, exchanging a soft nod and a quiet smile, a silent acknowledgement of their shared urban ritual. He'd order the same thing, usually a simple black coffee, and then find a quiet corner by the window if possible, where he could once again observe the city's waking dance. The gentle clatter of cups, the low murmur of conversations, the soft hiss of the espresso machine, all these sounds would blend into a comforting symphony, a backdrop to his quiet contemplation. He wouldn't rush his coffee, no. He'd sip it slowly, deliberately, savoring the warmth, the subtle bitterness, allowing the caffeine to gently unfurl its effects, rather than jolting him into abrupt alertness. He rarely listened to news podcasts or watched news channels, preferring to absorb information in a more distilled, less urgent manner. He might casually glance at headlines online or pick up a discarded newspaper, but he didn't seek out the constant barrage of updates that so many others seemed to crave. He understood that the world was a complex place, filled with both joy and sorrow, but he chose to engage with it on his own terms, at his own pace, filtering the noise to protect his internal calm. He found that a gentle awareness, rather than an overwhelming immersion, was sufficient to understand the pulse of the world, without allowing its anxieties to disrupt his cherished serenity. Even cooking, when he did engage in it, was a slow, deliberate process. He enjoyed the quiet ritual of chopping vegetables, the rhythmic thud of the knife on the cutting board, the gentle sizzle of ingredients in a pan. He wasn't trying to create culinary masterpieces, but rather simple, nourishing meals that were prepared with care and attention. He'd often put on some soft, instrumental music, allowing the melodies to fill his kitchen, enhancing the meditative quality of the task. The aroma of herbs and spices would slowly fill his apartment, a comforting scent that spoke of domesticity and quiet contentment. And then, the slow, deliberate act of eating, savoring each bite, truly tasting the flavors, a gentle communion with the food he had prepared. He had a quiet understanding of his own limitations, and he embraced them without judgment. He knew he wasn't built for the relentless hustle, the constant striving that seemed to define so many lives in the urban landscape, and he was okay with that. He had found his own path, a gentler, more contemplative way of existing, and he knew, deep in his quiet heart, that it was the right path for him. His laziness wasn't a flaw, not in his eyes, but simply an inherent part of his nature, a deeply ingrained preference for slowness, for stillness, for a life lived at a pace that allowed for true appreciation and profound peace. It was his superpower, in a way, allowing him to navigate the frantic energy of the city without being consumed by it. Sometimes, a fleeting desire to travel might stir within him, a gentle whisper of faraway places, of different cultures and landscapes. But even these desires were unhurried, not urgent calls to action. He might spend an afternoon idly browsing images of ancient ruins or pristine beaches online, imagining himself there, but without any concrete plans or bookings. The joy was in the contemplation, in the gentle exploration of possibilities, rather than the frantic pursuit of actual experiences. He understood that the world was vast and beautiful, and that there was a profound joy in simply knowing that, in holding that possibility gently in his mind, without the pressure of having to immediately embrace it. His inner world was a rich and complex tapestry, woven with threads of quiet observation, gentle contemplation, and a deep appreciation for the subtle nuances of existence. He spent a great deal of time simply thinking, allowing his mind to wander through philosophical questions, creative ideas, or the gentle memories of moments past. These internal journeys were as fulfilling, if not more so, than any external adventures. They were a constant source of quiet stimulation, a private sanctuary where his mind could roam freely, unburdened by the demands of the external world. His quietness wasn't an emptiness, but a deep reservoir of thought and feeling, a silent, thriving ecosystem of inner life. And as the city continued its endless, cyclical dance of day and night, of waking and sleeping, Leo remained a constant, gentle presence within its embrace. His apartment, high above the bustling streets, was a beacon of quietude, a testament to the enduring power of a life lived at its own gentle pace. He was a silent philosopher of the urban landscape, an unhurried artist of the everyday, finding beauty and meaning in the slow unfolding of each moment. His story was a quiet symphony, a gentle melody played on the strings of time, reminding anyone who might listen that there is a profound grace in the unhurried, a deep wisdom in the slow, and an enduring peace in the simple act of being. The distant drone of the city outside continued, a steady, rhythmic pulse, a constant reminder of the world's relentless momentum. Yet within Leo's quiet haven, time moved differently. It wasn't about minutes ticking by, but about the slow, deliberate breath of moments expanding and contracting, each one a universe unto itself. He had a particular soft spot for rain, not the fierce, tumultuous downpours that lashed against the windows with aggressive intent, but the soft, persistent drizzle that veiled the city in a gentle gray. He'd often sit by his window during these times, watching the raindrops trace delicate, shimmering paths down the glass, each one a tiny, fleeting masterpiece. The city itself seemed to soften under the rain's embrace, its hard edges blurred, its vibrant colors muted, a quieter, more contemplative version of itself. The sound of the rain, a gentle patter, was a soothing balm, an acoustic blanket that wrapped around his apartment, deepening the sense of peace. It was during these moments that his mind felt most at ease, most open to the quiet currents of inspiration that flowed within him. His creative process, when he finally engaged with a design project, often began with a long period of quiet contemplation. He wouldn't immediately open his software or start sketching. Instead, he'd let the client's brief sit with him, marinating in his mind, allowing the ideas to slowly coalesce like sediment settling in a quiet pool. He'd think about the colors, the shapes, the underlying message, not with frantic urgency, but with a gentle, probing curiosity. He trusted that the right solution would eventually reveal itself, emerging from the depths of his subconscious like a slow-rising bubble. This unhurried approach, though sometimes testing the patience of more fast-paced clients, almost always resulted in work that was thoughtful, elegant, and imbued with a quiet sophistication that was uniquely his. Even the act of tidying up his apartment, which he did on occasion, was approached with a certain languid grace. He wouldn't embark on a frantic cleaning spree. Instead, he'd pick up a stray book, return it to its place on the shelf, then perhaps pause to dust a nearby surface with a slow, deliberate swipe of a cloth. Each task was a small, self-contained act, performed without haste, without the pressure of completing a larger chore. It was more akin to a gentle reshuffling, a subtle reordering of his quiet universe, rather than a rigorous imposition of order. The process was as important as the outcome, each movement a small dance of mindfulness, a quiet affirmation of his presence in his space. He found a certain solace in the quiet anonymity of the urban crowd. When he did venture out to the park or a quiet cafe, he enjoyed being a part of the vast tapestry of humanity, yet simultaneously detached from its immediate demands. He could observe, listen, and simply be without the pressure of active engagement. The ebb and flow of people, their conversations a distant murmur, their expressions a fleeting tableau, were all part of the endless show that the city offered. He was a spectator, not a participant, and this role suited him perfectly, allowing him to absorb the energy of the world without being overwhelmed by its intensity. His meals, whether prepared by him or picked up from a nearby eatery, were always savored. He wasn't one to rush through food, barely noticing the flavors as he consumed it. For Leo, eating was a gentle ritual, an opportunity to connect with his senses, to appreciate the textures, the aromas, the subtle tastes of each ingredient. He'd eat slowly, deliberately, allowing his body to truly register the nourishment, his mind to quietly appreciate the simple pleasure of a well-prepared meal. It was another small act of mindfulness, a way of anchoring himself in the present moment, transforming a basic necessity into a profound experience. Sometimes, in the late afternoon, when the light took on that particular golden hue, he'd find himself drifting towards the small bookshelf in his living room. He had a modest collection of books, mostly old novels, poetry anthologies, and a few philosophical texts, each one bearing the subtle scent of aged paper and quiet contemplation. He might pull one out, not necessarily to read it cover to cover, but perhaps to open it at a random page, to let his eyes fall on a passage, a sentence, a single word, allowing its meaning to slowly unfurl in his mind. It was a gentle communion with the thoughts of others, a quiet journey into different worlds, undertaken without any sense of urgency or obligation. The book became a companion, a silent conversationalist, offering insights at its own unhurried pace. The rhythm of his breathing was something he often paid gentle attention to, especially when lying in bed before drifting off to sleep or upon first waking. He'd simply observe it, The slow, steady inhale, the gentle, lingering exhale without trying to control it, just allowing it to flow naturally, organically. This simple act of awareness was a powerful anchor, connecting him to the fundamental, unchanging rhythm of his own body, a quiet reassurance in the midst of the city's constant motion. It was a subtle form of meditation, an unconscious practice that reinforced his inherent connection to slowness, to stillness, to the profound simplicity of being alive. He had never felt the need to prove himself to anyone. The external pressures that seemed to weigh so heavily on others, the need for status, for recognition, for material accumulation, simply didn't resonate with him. His sense of worth came from within, from the quiet satisfaction of living authentically, of honoring his own unique pace and preferences. He understood that true contentment wasn't found in the relentless pursuit of external goals, but in the cultivation of an inner peace, a quiet acceptance of oneself, and a profound appreciation for the simple, unhurried moments that made up the fabric of his days. This gentle self-acceptance was his greatest strength, allowing him to navigate the world with a calm heart and an unshakable sense of peace. The distant sound of children playing in a nearby park, their high-pitched laughter drifting faintly through his open window on a warm afternoon, was another gentle layer in the city's symphony. It wasn't an intrusive sound, but rather a subtle reminder of the vibrant, unfolding lives that surrounded him, a quiet affirmation of joy and innocence. He'd sometimes imagine their games, their boundless energy, a stark contrast to his own serene stillness, yet he felt no sense of envy or regret. He simply observed, a quiet smile playing on his lips, appreciating the beauty of their youthful exuberance from his own tranquil vantage point. It was another small piece of the urban tapestry, gently woven into the fabric of his unhurried existence.